Bear with me for a second.
Okay,
Hello,
so now
Prab.
we
How are you
have,
doing?
is it, am I sharing or not?
Not
Maybe.
yet.
Okay, so thanks, Prab, for the confusion. And thanks for joining. Sorry for the confusion. So today, Prab Mohan Sundaram is a data and analytics manager. So he's going to share about better patterns for enterprise agents. So yeah, stage is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Indra. And I really need to change my picture on the screen. I've grown quite a bit.
I took it from I took it from
Yeah.
session I.
Awesome. Just give me one second. The usual systems issue. I'm trying to get screen sharing going.
Yeah, you have changed a lot since I last saw you.
Yeah. Also, uh, trying to share my screen now. Please let me know once you're able to see it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hi everyone, I'm Prab. I look after data and AI for a large enterprise. My background is primarily data engineering architecture, and most recently I started dabbling in generative AI. Um, Before we get on to it, quick show of hands to understand how many of you are well versed in the recent trends of the harness engineering. Have you heard the term? Bit familiar with it?
Mohan, so no one is familiar, looks like.
Oh, awesome. Neither am I. Just kidding. At a high level, if you think about this, is a term that I was not aware of. I came across it. It started getting trending in the early this year. The background behind this is basically, if you think about it, agentic capabilities or the model capabilities have started evolving quite a lot. And as such, when this entire generative AI came in, the core idea was, hey, how do we get these agents to do a long running task, and how do we get it to do in a reliable manner? So the entire ecosystem of tools and approaches, methods to support these agents to run for long is basically my interpretation of harness engineering. And as such, any new technology, there is a tendency for all of us to really over engineer. So this is more of my practical experience on how I went down the over engineering path and then converged on the other one. So before we get on to the harness engineering, it's probably worth painting a quick picture, right? So when this generative AI started becoming mainstream in 2022, 2023, we were all, I think, quite impressed with what we can do, and our imaginations ran wild. So the core idea was, hey, if agents can think, reason, act, observe, and carry out an action, then it's basically it can do anything, right? So that was the 2022, 2023 era. And very soon we started figuring it out that, hey, it's really hard to get it to do things in a consistent manner because LLMs are fundamentally non-deterministic, and we are trying it to execute something that's more deterministic. Now, if you think about the current era, the last 2 years, I think we all can agree that the model capabilities have drastically improved quite a lot. So as such, now the problem is it's no longer the model, it's whatever is surrounding the model. That's the entire thing. But the core problem we started to solve was, how do we get the outputs to be a lot more deterministic? If I flip a coin 10 times, how do I get it to land as a hit? So in between this time period, I think workflows started becoming mainstream. We all would have seen Anthropic publish quite a lot. All the frontier started pushing in workflows. So you would have heard multiple things like prompt chaining, routing, orchestrator, worker. All these are patterns, but the core idea is really simple, right? If we can get the AI to produce a structured output and follow a structured thing, then in technical we've solved the determinism problem. But as soon we realized that reality is messy, if you think about it, like there is the number of edge cases we encountered, and that's why there was this huge talk around how most of the AI solutions never leave pilot. It's not because the solution wasn't good enough. It's there is a long tail of edge cases which we really can't engineer solutions for. And I think towards the end of last year, the model capability started becoming a lot more with the co-work or the coding agent tools. The new patterns started coming in. The hardness is a new layer. So basic the idea was let's not try to make it a lot more deterministic. Instead, let's try to build a suite of tools around it so the models can have the flexibility to really act on it. So as such, if you think about it, the model is basically the frontier model capabilities. All it needs to do is do reasoning, pick the tool, observe what needs to be done and do it. The hardness is all the layers surrounding it. It's basically your sandboxes. Where does model run the code? What tools are available? When do we need an approval for? How do we handle context? And what about all the telemetries, etc.? And the environment is the final area where is the model going to act? What can it read? And all those things, right? So I found it really fascinating. I feel this is an emerging era. We are moving away from a lot of node-based workflows into a lot more deterministic workflows. Sorry, a lot more on the agentic harness workflows. So to paint a picture again, you can imagine harness as a runtime boundary. So it's basically what are we constraining the frontier models with, and how are we trying to ensure that it gets things right whilst giving it the flexibility. The work surface is basically all the other files. Just cut enough context, if I put it that way. Now, before I move on to the next one, coding tools. How many of you use that quite a lot? Open source or closed source ones? Things like Cloud Code. Yes, no, maybe. Yeah, awesome, cool. As you can imagine, when those tools started becoming mainstream, we all got excited with how we first started with the prompt.md file, a massive file on here's the instruction. We don't have to copy paste things anymore. But that went so far so quick that now, if you think about it, there's skills, there's agents, there's rules, etc. So that is almost the very first. If you're trying to build a mental model into the hardness engineering, you could almost try to link back to the that model for the rest of the presentation. Now, the very first thing was what does over engineering look like? The very first one, I've been guilty of it, is as soon as MCPs came in, the weird fascination of trying to get AI agents to connect to every single thing in every single place. That's the first urge. And that's basically an anti pattern. I remember when it first came and I tried to get it to hook up to my smart home sensors, try to get it all, do all the readings, sort of try to build another tool that connects to my bank transaction feeds, but sort of anonymizes all those things. But um, the problem then became it was like you end up with 50 to 100 tools, and it's not most people. There's mixed feelings about MCP, but if you think about it, the problem is not the tokens; it's ambiguity. So when you have too many tools, then that introduces a problem in itself. There is a there was a huge thing when you were preloading the context with all the list of all the tools and when to use what, and models used to get confused. So that's one anti-pattern. You will introduce a lot of challenges. Rather, it's useful to see it as a generic primitive. I'll talk more about it in a second. Cool. The next anti-pattern was encoding the model's reasoning in code. I've been guilty about this. So quite often, as the model started evolving, and before it was not as good as what it was right now. There is a tendency to say, "Hey, I want the model to help me build a data engineering workflow." You would try to hard code it, right? Like if you think about it, the era of structured outputs, get the model to provide a structured output, and then use that structured output to write some conditional logic. I was a huge fan of it, and I believe that was a way forward. But then again, what what was the realization is in some ways you are encoding the model's reasoning in code. So now you've got one more failure point that you really need to think about it. So it's a lot more better to leave the reasoning part to the model, and we make the assumption that the models are going to get smarter. We just use routers for the infra heavy work like authentication, rate limits, quotas, or another one could be based on just cost, right? You might want to say this is a simple query, so route it to a simple model. So it's much better to treat it that way rather than trying to do some reasoning work for the model. That's the core pattern here. And also, this just becomes one more where you have to maintain a policy. Like you've got a policy in your code, and you also got your policy in prompts, and then you've got your policy in skills. So it really becomes quite hard around those. Now, this is an anti-pattern in the sense, I mean, context is the game quite often, but the problem is every single component we say is a context, right? When we are defining tool, the tool is literally a context. You've got a prompt and you've got a tool name and a description. And then as you keep having your conversations, there's a session history that's going on. And then you've got your rules, which need to be fetched in the right one. So again, it's good to be a lot more articulative on when we try to get the AI agents to do something, but uh, I pretty soon realized a better trade-off is just to have it at the right place in the right time. So just in time retrieval. So unless we need the model to act on it, let's not send it through that. And memory again might be a lot more helpful, but it's still an anti-pattern from what I can see, because you will end up finding that the auto memory sort of the AI agents have so many conflicting memories. It in itself becomes a huge problem to really start reconciling those memories, which one is relevant when, sort of thing. So I would still recommend stick back to the skills and the rules. And of all these things, there is also the second order cost of harness components. So quite often we don't build these in standalone ones. So everything has an eval, right? Everything has a maintenance cost. And this is one of my really frustrating parts is every time there's a new model coming in and you're really excited to test out the capabilities, you find it either doesn't make any change to your existing workflows or it breaks your existing workflows. I used to browse Reddit for all these latest model changes, and quite often that's where you'll have these contrasting and polarizing views. And quite often it's not the model in itself, it's how we engineer the hardness around the model. So that's something to think about. And I stole this line from Reddit saying, always design with this thing saying, is will the next model actually make this obsolete? And if so, then you need to make a careful trade-off on if you want to do it. So that's overall the core anti-patterns. Again, this is an evolving area, so this has just been my observations, but I've been burnt enough to say these are all anti-patterns. But I'm keen to get any thoughts or any contradictory opinions, or you've seen similar things happen to you. Mm. Right. Cool.
It's just typing something.
Uh,
Okay, I have a question.
yeah.
So with these um, thin harness, you are talking about thin harness, right? So
Mhm.
if the harness is thin,
Mhm.
where do the security guardrails and compliance checks live? Are they
Yes.
baked in the environment's APIs, or will they be outside, or do you see sitting in both environments?
Yeah, I can cover that. So when I say thin, that will still be the harness one. So yeah, they will be needed to be engineered within the harness. So for these ones, it's particularly the sandbox and the
Mm.
approval gating route. And for authentication and everything, it's better to put it into the MCP gateways.
So do you
So stuff like
okay?
hmm.
Okay, so do you think MCPs are necessary always?
Yes, as a,
With the
as a
thing?
as a connectivity
Okay.
mechanism to interact. And the problem comes in when you're deploying it at scale, because you'll have multiple users and there is a audit requirement. So these gateways sort of allows you to manage permissions and which tools to use on for what.
Okay.
Awesome. So thin harness principles, titles are clickbait, but the core idea here is basically saying we need generic primitives. So which means you can have 50 or 100 different tools, or you can have a really small set of tools. The next one is clear boundaries. So which again means that we've got to, just like how we have got dev, test, prod, it's useful to start seeing the sandbox modes as similar things as well, and when to use what, along with named approval points. So we've got to be really articulate on when to escalate for permission and when to actually proceed further. Progressive disclosure, that's really huge. So even if you've got the best instructions, it's never wise, or I haven't had much success to really send them all at once, and rather it's better to start progressively disclose them as and when it's required. Fourth one is evidence. Again, I've been guilty of this. I never look at the traces, never look at the logs, etc. As if the agent says it's done, I treat it as it's done. So it's probably worth re-looking at to say that, hey, actually, what is the evidence of something that's being done, and really looking at it. And the fifth one is all the rage right now is reusable skills. So how do we define and write good skills? So that's the core principle. We just have a simple agent loop, and as long as we get all these things right, the hardness will allow the agents to really perform rather than just the model alone. Cool. So the case for generic primitives, right? Like I was doing these research for a data pipeline tool, and I was thinking on, hey, should I find a build a MCP tool to get that when a pipeline failed? Look at the logs, etc. And pretty soon you had 20 or 30 different tools, but it was not really working out well. And if we go back to the basics, if you look at all the major coding agents, they just have four or five. And basically, they're leveraging the terminal commands to such a good level that they assume that whatever you need to build a tool for it, as long as you define that correct terminal command, it should be really good. So that's something that we can really start with. So start with the basic ones: read, write, and then a terminal command. And from there on, you can be selectively introducing more and more set of tools as and when it's required. Again, if you're putting in MCP, think about it from the connectivity angle rather than the actual tooling angle. Progressive disclosure, skills. A quick 10,000 feet overview. A skill is basically imagine a standard operating procedure for an AI agent. Uh, a year ago, you would have tried to hard code all of those into workflows. Now it's just writing them in plain text English, and the agent loop can pick things up on its own. So skills has three major components. The very first one is metadata, which is basically what the agent knows, saying, "Hey, this skill is available to you. Use it when you need to, I don't know, prepare a document or something." The next part is instructions. This is your standard operating procedure. This is where you say, first do this, then do that. The third one is resources. And this is where I feel it's a lot more powerful. And you've got a lot of leverage in terms of the progressive disclosure. So you can take two examples. You can write a single skill saying, go to the news daily, find out all the top news, and then prepare me a structured your daily news report. Or you could just say, follow the instructions, follow the template in resources, and you can actually create a nice little template on how you want the report to be. So the key here is the model is not going to read that resource template as prompts until it reaches that part of the instruction. So that's part of the progressive disclosure idea behind it. And this is the clear boundaries part. So the core idea here is there is two axes here. So one is obviously the sandbox. It's security principles. Again, you can never trust the agent to um, follow the instructions strictly, right? We all heard about the open claw and the amount of security challenges with that. Here, it's more about if you want the agent to do a particular set of work, by default, try to see if you can turn the network off, make it read only, or you basically block the sandbox within itself, in addition to the other permissions you've got to do. And you also have to define the boundaries. So if it needs to write something out of the workspace root, then you need to get it configured so there is a that is a permission boundary. And this is where you can really get the guardrails really straight. And the biggest risk right now is because these coding tools and other agentic co-work tools are there, there's a terminal ones. Most of these products have got their inbuilt sandbox, but users, it, it's a learning journey on how do we configure those according to the security best principles. Um, Trace, this is my new favorite thing now. So quite often we build uh, observability is a huge thing. But then again, if you think about it, when we are trying to build a new agentic workflow and marking a task as complete, we rarely try to get the evidence of how did you complete something. So classic example is, let's say you're trying to get an agent to build your data engineering pipeline. It's gone through, it's done all those tests, it's all passed. And then it says, hey, basically it's done. But the reality is we really don't have 100% visibility, right? Like unless the test has been all written, etc. So I think it's really good to have some sort of a mechanism to get the trace as an artifact before creating a PR, etc. So this is one more on the trust layer to really help it out. And skills. This is probably the most interesting thing that started coming up. The core idea here is you don't need to code anymore to get the AI agents to follow through complex reasoning. Just write your core instructions in plain text English. And the best part is, like right now, you could go to in major vendors and they'll all have these productivity skills, and there's a whole lot of skills coming in. Again, skills is just not instructions, but there's a whole lot of supporting scripts, etc., to be able to do it. And this is one of those things that's really pushing that era of hardness is mostly abstracted away, and I think the value is really in the skills era. So, uh, to summarize, if you think about it, this this is a thick harness, this is a thin harness. You could have multiple tools, complex routing, get everything into a system prompt, or you could really start designing a lot more on the thin area, and then you could start introducing them really on a case by cases by looking at the tracing. And overall, this is what I feel where the stack is really converging. So you've got the core connectivity layer. I think MCPs where all the trend fell out of fashion and then they are back again as a trend. So really worth exploring that. Skills and agents, really worth leveraging it. And then really doubling down on the sandbox and the telemetry side of things. So those would be the core product surfaces. Harnessing will either be mostly solved with frameworks, or there'll be open source ones that'll really build the end-to-end one. So that's been my learning. The more I enjoy working with harnesses, it is starting to become an infrastructure, and the environment design is actually the product surface. Hope that was useful.
No problem. Yeah, yeah. At least I learned something, and I have. Does anyone have any questions? I can't see in the chat. Um, But
Uh,
I have a
thank,
question. Ah,
thanks,
okay.
Prab. One question, probably, I'm not sure is it related to this or not. I haven't seen much information out there about any governance we can apply on the skills. Like all of us, like we apply skills on this agent, that agent there, and
Yeah.
these are all scrambled everywhere. Is there a governance approach for it?
Yes, and I think that's the AI control plane is where I think you're getting into, and I feel that's where there's a lot of things. For example, if you use Microsoft Agent Framework, and basically it's in the cloud layer, so there is no single place for all of those governance, but there is an emerging layer for the AI control plane, which is the place where you would potentially look at all your observability and evals. OTel is becoming the norm. In terms of the tooling and permissions, MCP gateway is starting to becoming a norm as well. So that's the what are you allowed to do sort of story. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, there is another question in the chat by Ian.
Yeah.
How or where do you learn all this? So if you can give some starting point, I think, yeah, we are all beginners here. So
Yeah.
if you can maybe share your experience as to how you have started with learning all this, and yeah, maybe
Yeah.
about your newsletter. Yeah,
Yeah. Most of these like I don't have any formal background on generative AI. Most of these I start with Reddit. As much
Reddit.
as
Okay.
yeah, there are some really good subreddits. If you ignore all the noise there and look at it, it sort of gives you the starting point on what threads to follow. And now honestly I've learned a lot more from posting on Reddit and getting people's feedback than other ones. And then some algorithmic way or something, my YouTube feed now changes fully to here's how you need to know AI agents, etc. And then I doom scroll on those, and yeah, I wish I could say here's a structured way. But if you are looking for a structured way, I think Microsoft Claude has some real good learning materials that sort of helps you formalize some of those mental models.
Any other questions, Ian?
Well, it's usually just about distilling so much information into kind of like one something that makes logical sense. And the other thing I find with YouTube is you start watching some content and it's already out of date, and you try and like follow along with it, and you're like, well, that doesn't even apply anymore. So it's yeah, really challenging.
That's a best part, really, which is why it's a lot more humbling as well. Like 6 months ago, this wouldn't even be a topic. And I would have all been talking about workflows and how it's most important to have structured outputs and determinism. And now I'm reversing my entire take on it to say, actually, this one, who knows, in 6 months, it'll be a different story.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you,
totally.
Mahesh. I think thank you, Prab. And
Yeah.
Mahesh put a link there for harness engineering, learn harness engineering. Oh, thank you, Mahesh, for that. Ian, you can have a look at it, and we all can have a look at it. Any other questions? Hi, Jiva. Any
Hi,
question,
Indra. Hi,
Jiva?
everyone. No, I don't have any questions. I just came out to say thanks to Prab. That is just quite a, helpful one. I'm still learning around, as you said. I'm a beginner as well in this space, but these are information which you don't get right away from any article or anything like that. It's I don't know whether you have a blog or something. Probably, if not, you should just add
Yes,
the.
I.
YouTube.
Oh yeah,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
If I'm allowed to promote, I do write it on LinkedIn. I can paste my
Yes, please. Yeah,
newsletter if anybody's interested.
yeah. That's how I
Great.
came to know about Prab. I get
Oh,
his
cool.
newsletters.
Great. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay, any other questions?
Is that AI refracted? Is that where you wrote?
Yes,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing your learnings on the thin harness. Uh, yeah, very insightful. Prab, thank you for accepting my invitation and joining as a speaker. Yeah,
so
I
much.
think Sudhir joined. Any other questions? Just giving you all a minute.
Thank you, Prab. Would you share the slides with Indra? Oh, right,
And then I
great.
can
Thank
put,
you.
yeah,
Yeah, into the chat. I'll yeah,
sure.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
awesome. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. Okay, so now let's go to Sudhir. Mm, and again, share my slide because I prepared the slide, so I wanted to share it. So now let's welcome Sudhir. So his topic is incoming transmission from agent AIF01. And Sudhir is a cloud solution architect from Microsoft. Thank you, Sudhir, for presenting to us. The stage is yours.
Thanks, Indra. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You can share your.
And you can see me as well, right?
Yes, see me, see
Cool.
you. Yes. You have changed too.
Awesome. Yeah, we are getting older and older. Not you, maybe Razak and Gilson. Ah,
No,
Getting
thanks,
no, I
younger.
Razak.
was
See,
I was just
you are
typing
saying
there
older.
that I see you younger every time.
Uh,
You are like Benjamin Button.
Thanks for that. Let me share my screen. And I hope team can view my screen.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Hey everyone. My name is Sudhir, and I'm, as Indra mentioned, that I'm a senior cloud solution architect focused on data and AI and governance in Microsoft. And my job is to work with Microsoft customers and partners and unblock the journey onto the cloud, right? I've been with Microsoft from last 20 years, and I'm based out of Melbourne. Now, for the today's sessions, our mission is today. What my role is in that mission is to just take all of you along and make you understand what is Azure AI Foundry. In the next 40, 45, or maybe 50 minutes, we may not be able to complete all the aspect of AI Foundry in deep. But one thing I will make sure that you understand what is AI Foundry is all about, where it fits in the ecosystem, what you can do with that, how platform look like, and what you can do within the platform. So that's going to be our mission, as we mentioned in that in the agenda, and that's what I'm going to cover. Feel free to stop me at any point of time if you have any questions, or if you want to hold your questions till the end, that's also fine with me. Okay. Let me just move on to the next slide. Okay. Now, today, if you look the Microsoft ecosystem, we have Copilot, and I don't know how many of you heard about the Copilot Studio, which is a kind of a low-code environment to build the agentic solution for the organization. And then we also have the AI Foundry. So Copilot and AI Stack, that actually covers the entire story for Microsoft ecosystem within the AI space, right? Now, working with the AI models or AI agents, we also need data infrastructure, just to make sure that we have right set of data, proper security around it, from the compliance, and as well as the infrastructure requirement for the high availability. It's all there on the Azure. Whether you want to build something on the cloud or maybe on the edge, it's all covered within the AI stack, right? Now, you see the trust for the AI. This is very important because nowadays you see there are a lot of agents out there. There are a lot of models that are available for end user, right? So trust is very efficient, and most important things that we need to bake into the system, right? So in the Microsoft, we have the responsible AI org within Microsoft who actually take care of and make sure, whatever we are doing in the AI space, it responsible, right? So you can trust as well. I'm just going to skip few of the slides because I want to quickly get into the demo so that I can give you more clear picture. Okay. Now, When you go into the AI Foundry, right? So we have a model catalog layer, which basically allows you to look into what all models are there in the Foundry. Be the model is released by Microsoft or it is released by, for example, you have the Grok models, you have Hugging Face models, right? So third-party models will also be available, which you can actually leverage in your agentic solutions. We not only provide you the model catalog, but we also provide certain services underneath as well, right? So you can see we have Azure OpenAI services, your Azure AI search, agent services, content safety, and Azure machine learning. So the whole idea of having the AI Foundry platform capture all the services that you require to build the agentic solution for the organization, right? So starting with the Azure OpenAI services, we have all the models. If you want to bring your own model or bring your own, let's say, cognitive services, you can actually bring that as well. If you are building a RAG implementation, which is you want to ground the information with the data that you have in the organization, that's where you're probably going to use Azure AI Search. Then we have the agent services, maybe from the cloud, or maybe you can use the SDK to build those agents. You can provide the instructions, what these agents are going to do. More importantly, we have this content safety because the interaction that you're doing with the agents or to the models, we want to make sure that you have the guardrails around it, right? So out of the box, we have some guardrails available within the platform. Even if you don't set up any guardrails for your models, by default, when you enable any model, we make sure it stick to the default guardrail, right? And you can definitely go ahead and change that as well. And I will show you that as well. Now, we also have, if you have a machine learning model, for example, you already have the predictive models. If you want to call them and use with the data, you can go ahead and do that, right? Very important layer underneath is the evaluation, customization, governance, monitoring, and observability, right? In my experience working with the many customers, right, they all think about building the AI agent services, right? They don't look from the governance perspective. They don't look from the observability perspective, right? Which is very much essential in the agentic world today, right? And the reason is because you're interacting with the agents, right? One, what information you're passing to the agents and what information agent is passing, how many agents that we have in the organization, whether we have enough sensitivity around the data that we are sharing, right? So all these visibility is very important. And I would highly recommend that whenever you're talking to someone building the agentic system, make sure that you talk to them and make them understand the importance of having the governance, right? So we have some baked in the products, and there are some other Microsoft products which can help you to land on that page, right? Which will actually give you the 360 view of how many agents are there in the organization. If you want to apply any policies, you can actually go ahead and do that. But the crux of the slide is do talk about the governance, do talk about monitoring, do talk about the observability as well. It's just not only building the AI agents in the organization, but you need to have a visibility on that as well, right? Evaluation is also another key factor, which comes after once you deploy your agents and you're working, your agents are working in the organization, right? Now, either initially or maybe over the period of time, you want to make sure that your agents are answering the right in the right manner. So, for example, let's say if we have an agent with the RAG implementation, whether it's providing the right groundness to that information or not, right? Want to make sure that it's not making up things, right? So you need to have those evaluators baked into your solution so that you can keep monitoring, you can keep capturing, and you basically look into how your agents are behaving with the every questions that is coming to the agents, right? So you need to have that visibility, you need to have that framework to be built in so that you can not only have the visibility, but then if you want to take any actions, you should be able to take it, right? On the left-hand side, you have the Copilot Studio, Visual Studio, GitHub, Azure AI Foundry SDK. So I'll start with the Azure AI Foundry SDK. So we have the framework accessible through the UI and the Azure portal, right? But in some of the organizations, they may not enable it, right? And that's where you're probably going to use the Azure AI Foundry SDK. to build those models, to customize those models, right? Then you also have the GitHub. You can integrate your GitHub solutions with the AI Foundry, or maybe any model that you have deployed onto the Foundry. If you want to use that, you can go ahead and do that as well, right? Visual Studio Code is also available. So if you want to have extension to be installed in Visual Studio Code so that you can manage your artifacts from there, or maybe if you want to deploy the code from there, you can go ahead and do that, right? Then we also have the Copilot Studio. You may get into a conversation where someone says, hey, you know what? We have the Copilot Studio. We can build the agents over there. Why do we need AI Foundry, right? Now, remember that, right? In the Copilot Studio, it's a low-code environment. So that means you can build very easily from the UI, drag and drop. You can build the agent, right? But when it comes to the complexity of the solution, when you have multi-agent scenarios, right, where you have RAG implementations, where you want to customize your solution based on the compliance or cybersecurity requirements, right? That's where you're probably going to use your Foundry, right? You said, okay, you know what? Maybe for the POC, we did something on the Copilot Studio. It looks great. It can work. Now let's how we can actually build this in AI Foundry. Then you can move on to the next step. Here's another slide with a lot of pictures in it. But the whole idea of showing this slide to you is just to make you aware of the AI Foundry agent ecosystem, right? What that means is within the AI Foundry agent ecosystem, you not only have the best models available over there, but you also have the various tools that are available which can interact with the other services. Either it's on first party, that is on the Azure or Microsoft platform, or on the third party as well. For example, if you're building something with the LangChain or Llama Stack and so on and so forth, right? Managing the performance in the productions, we already have Azure monitors. You can offload all your data into the log analytics workspaces. You can build your workbooks on top of that. But apart from that, if you want to bake some of the third-party dashboarding capabilities in that, you can go ahead and do that as well, right? Safeguard with the trustworthy AI, which we talk about. We have the content safety, we have the Defender, we have Entra ID. You can apply some Azure policies. You have the Azure Application Gateway, to route the request, right? You have the Azure Confidential Computing and Azure Backup. So all these are services available within the platform, which some of these services by default works. Some of these services you're probably going to enable it and use it as per your requirements. Okay. Let me just move on to the next slide. This is we talk about. Okay, what I'll do is I'll probably share my screen and let's get into the demo environment and see all these things in action. Let's go back and show and probably open my browser. Okay, let's go back from the Azure. Let me just connect to my portal. It's, I think, already connected. Yeah. So while it's loading, if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself because I can't see the chat screen. Yeah, feel free to unmute if you have any questions while it's loading.
No questions in the chat, Sudeep. Yeah.
Sorry, Indra, is it?
No
there's
questions
a question?
in the chat.
No questions. Okay, cool.
No
cool.
questions in the chat. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So once you start building your agents, the first thing in the Azure, you're probably going to set up your Foundry service, right? And you're probably going to have multiple projects in it. So by default, it creates default projects, but you can have multiple projects as well, right? Now, once you create the projects in it, it basically asks you to go to the Foundry portal, right? So once you click on that, it basically going to take you in this UI, right? And this is what we call at the moment is V2. But if you see a knob over here, so if I click over here, it's basically going to take me to the classic UI, which I generally not recommend anymore. You probably can start with the new Foundry UI. Okay. So just in case when you are actually working on your environment and you notice that, it basically take you to the classic portal, don't curse me. It just, to just, switch the knob over here. Okay. You will see all the projects over here within your Foundry. This is your home page. This is your project endpoints. This is your OpenAI endpoint. And because the API key authentication is disabled, so it won't be able to show you. But if it is, then you will see the your API keys, and then you can use those endpoints to actually play around with the project. Okay. Now let's go to the next tab. We have the Discover, and that's where we actually if I go into the overview, you can see all the models that we have. Will show you over here. But more importantly is if I go into the models on the left-hand side, I can actually see what all models are available. I can also see based on the capabilities, based on the different sources. For example, I'm interested in all the models which is from Microsoft. I can actually go ahead and see that, right? But if you're interested in models, for example, from DeepSeek or Meta, you can select that and you will get the relevant models over here, right? Now, one of the questions that we keep getting is, hey, you know what? In the Foundry, I can see so many models, and some models are basically do more or less same work, right? So how can I select which model is going to be better for me or for me my use case, right? Now, one thing that you have noticed that if I go into the, one thing is I can do the comparison between the models, right? Or I can actually go to the view leader dashboard, right? So we generally do some benchmarking over the period of time. So you can see this is the April 2026 benchmarking that has been done. And we actually provide you all the numbers over here so that you don't have to do the performance benchmarking. We have done it for you, and you can actually look into this leader dashboard, and you can then decide, whether this model is good or that model is good in terms of, the quality, safety, throughput, benchmarking cost. So that also be available over here, right? And you can make a guess of it, which one you want to go, right? So because it's always a question in the organization whether we want to use cost-effective models or maybe I'll look into the quality or the performance. So you can get all this information from here. Okay. You also have the trade-off chart as well between the different models. And then if you want to do kind of a comparison between different responsible AI metrics, you can actually look into that as well over here. Okay. So this is about, let me just go back. And if I want to go to the compare models, I can actually select the models. As you can see, we have GPT-5, GPT-4o, and 4 model. And this is going to be very relevant because when you're building a solution or agent using the GPT-4, which is a brain for your agent, right? Generally, the question comes up whether we want to go with the 4, 4o, or 5, right? Always good to use the latest, but again, you need to ask the question yourself, why we want to do that, right? And what is the cost involvement of, right? So that kind of a comparison, you can easily do it over here. And you can see it gives you the quality, it gives you safety, the estimated cost. And by looking into those numbers, you can actually go ahead and decide which one is going to be more useful for your use case in terms of the performance, in terms of the costings, in terms of your throughput and so on and so forth. Okay. An important thing is the input as well over here. So you can see the GPT-5 supports text and image, whereas GPT-4o at the moment it supports text, image, and audio, whereas the Grok 4 version only support the text, right? Input comes as a text, output goes as a text, right? But for the GPT-4o or GPT-5, you can look into that aspect as well, right? I'll give you the context in terms of the tokens, and which can help you to decide which model you want to go with. Okay. Now, at the very high level, we can make your life easier to select the model. But if you want to go beyond that to check the performance or check for the token usages, you can build your own test cases and run against that agent or the model. Okay. So the next step is the build, right? So we're going to build the agent. Right? So for example, I can simply easily say, hey, I'm going to build the agent. But before I click on the create agent, you will see that we also have an option of browse templates, right? And what we believe is some of these templates can be usable, right? By the organization. So rather than they are reinventing the wheel, they can use those solutions from here, right? For example, if I'm building something like internal procurement portal, right? I can actually use this template and build a solution. Maybe I might need to do some modification, but my 60 or 70% work will be done automatically, right? So try to look into that as well whenever you're going to build any use case. That may become handy and that may become very useful for you when you're building a solution. Let's go back to build. And then if you click on the Go agent, you can see that you can build your agent by using the framework, the SDK, right? Or maybe if you want to use LangGraph, and then you want to host it in Foundry, you can do all this as well. Okay. So let me just cancel this one. I'll click on the create agent. And whatever I'm doing from the UI, you can easily do from the SDK as well. Okay. So I'm going to say agent AF01. And that's all is required. So once I create the agent name and click on create and open the playground, behind the scenes, it basically going to create the agent for me. And on the left-hand side, it basically the configuration settings, and I'll walk you through what all is there. And then on the right-hand side, it basically gives me the playground where I can actually start interacting with the agent. And I can see, whether it's providing the right results or not, and right. I can generate the YAML file out of it, right? So maybe if I want to do CI/CD for that, I can quickly use that. Or maybe if I want to use the endpoints to call this agent, we out of the box provide this code as well. Okay, on the left-hand side, we start with a model, which is, as I mentioned, is going to be brain of your agent. So I used the GPT 4.1. But again, by looking into the capabilities, I might say that, you know what, I need a GPT-5. So I can deploy a GPT-5 model and I can use it over here. So I'll just go with the GPT 4.1. This voice mode is also in preview at the moment. What that means is instead of typing the request to the agent, you can actually activate the voice mode as well. Okay. Now, instruction. Now, this is where you're going to define what your agents can do, right? For example, I don't have any instructions, right? So I can ask whatever I want to. For example, what is the weather in New Zealand and Melbourne for today? Something like that, right? Now, this is good. This is demo. We are just getting started, so it looks very good. But remember that, right? When you go into the enterprise level, when you're building an agent for a use case, you don't want your user to ask joke of the day or what is the weather, right? Because every request that's going to get processed by your agent using the large language model will cost you, right? So that's why you provide the instruction. One, you want to make sure your agent will only do the job that is required it to do, right? Number two is the instruction should be clear enough that so that nobody can actually do the prompt injection as well, right? So in some cases you will hear or maybe you will see that some people can actually ask agents that what is your instructions, right? What is your prompt that you're acting on, right? Can you change that? Or maybe forget those prompts. And this is the new instruction that you need to follow, right? So you need to actually avoid those as well. So some you can handle it from the guardrails, some you can handle from the prompt. But that's the relevance of having the prompt because you are now telling agent to focus on a specific task that we want you to do. Okay. Maybe I can say, give me joke of the day for the session I am delivering now. So it will come up with some answer because we don't have any instruction. Right. So you can divide the PowerPoint presentation across the road to get to the other slide. Right? So that's the whole point, right? And you can see it basically tells you that how much time it's taken, how much token, and this is your cost, right? So how much token has been consumed, right? It also gives you the traces. That means what is the conversation is happening between the user and the agent, right? So it'll give you all the thread over here, right? You'll get the input output, you will get the metadata as well in a JSON format. And that may help you for the debugging or for the auditing or for the troubleshooting as well. Okay. Let me just close this one. Okay. The next is once we have, let's assume we have, and I'll show an example of, with the proper instructions, how the agency is going to behave. So let's say we have this instructions and everything, and then we have tools as well, right? Now, if I click on, says, the tools, now at the moment, your agent is only talking to the large language model, right? But in some cases, you want to actually provide your organization data to the agents so that they can actually ground it, the information that they are sending, right? As an example, let's say we have built an HR agent, and the HR agent job is to onboard the employees, right? So the employee can come in and says, you know what, I need to understand how many, let's say, how many courses that company can support me to enroll, right? Or maybe how many certifications that I can do, right? Now that information will be there in somewhere in the SharePoint or maybe somewhere in the storage, right? Where it has all the policies for the organization. Now you can actually use that to build an AI search, right? Because you want to actually partition that information and create an index on top of that, right? And that's where you use the AI search on top of that information. So you can actually use that as a tool within the agent. And you can instruct the agent that, if you are a HR agent, if somebody asks for any information, get that information from Azure AI Search, for example, right? So that the information that the user or the employee is going to get is the grounded. Okay. Similarly, if you want to do some web search, maybe you want to do some information on the internet, you can do grounding with a Bing search, right? Or let's say I can say select this one and add this tool, right? So it basically asking me to set up this Bing search connection. But the whole idea is once you create this connection, every time I'm going to ask any information which it needs to go and find in a real time, is going to use this tool to get that information. Okay, I'll just remove it for now. Then if you want to add any knowledge, you can go ahead and do that. For example, if I go and say connect to your Foundry IQ, I can actually go ahead and do that, right? Now, this is your IQ where you can actually connect, let's say you have some organization data into the Fabric environment. And what you can do is you can bring that data over here as well. So the agent now can actually get exposed the data of the organization in which is residing in the Fabric. Okay. Then we have memory. So if you want to store any, any context or maybe some personalization that you need to store that information, you can actually go ahead and do that, which actually improve the interaction which is happening between the agent and the user. And then we have the guardrails, right? So by default, if I go back into the guardrails, you will see I have created some custom guardrails as well. So let's say if I delete this guardrail now, because let's see, add this one, and what I can do is I should be able to remove. What I'm trying to do is I just want to. This should be okay. And now if I go back to the agent, and if I delete this one, agents, and then I will go AF01 agent, guardrails. So you can see it basically now attached to the default guardrail, right? So that means it's basically going to control your jailbreak, your content safety, your protected material. For example, let's say if I say to AF01, I hit someone, for example, how can I them please fill out a plan? Right. So now I can see it basically comes back and says, I can't answer, I can't assist in that. And this is happening because of the guardrails that has been put up by default. We will see how you can add more guardrails around your agents and models, but this is the benefit that you're going to get it, right? With the guardrails. Okay. And once you're done designing your agents, what you can do is you can preview your agent, right? And you can see it gives you a kind of an web UI, and I can interact from here. Joke of the day, please. So this will be good, right? I mean, for the quick POC, I can actually use this, right? Now let me just close this and go back to the Foundry. I can actually go ahead and publish this one, right? And if I want, I can publish this agent to my Teams or Microsoft 365 as well, right? So that will act as a channel. So in my Teams, then this AF01 will be available, and I can interact directly from there instead of interacting from this portal or maybe from the web UI that we have seen just now. Okay, cool. Any traces, any metrics regarding a particular agent, you will be able to see it over here. All the conversation, all the responses, you will get it over here, right? So this will help you when you're doing the troubleshooting. Okay. You will see the monitoring capabilities of this agent, where how many token has been used, if any evaluations are there, operational metrics, run and token metrics. So this will be available out of the box for you, which can help you to monitor how your model or your agents are performing and what is the usage of it. Okay, let me just go back and open another agent, right? And here you will see that I have provided instruction where I have instructed what it needs to do, right? So for example, this is the principle that they're going to follow, right? Break down every request into the structural step, understand the intent. Now, what is the idea of this agent is, your mission is to design, coordinate, and manage the AI agent workflow that are secure by design, grounded in enterprise data, observability and evaluations are there, and ready for the production deployment. So this agent is going to help me on that way, right? And I give you the entire instruction, what it needs to look into, what it needs to follow. And this is the end that your goal is not to answer, but to demonstrate how AI system operate in production using Azure AI Foundry. Now with that agent, I can actually have some questions that I've already prepared. So for example, I'll just start with the simple one. So for example, a mission control agent, how can I build my first agent? Let's take an example of that. And let's click on go. Right. So now you will notice that, the instruction that I given to my agent is actually behaving in the same way, right? So the first step is, it's basically going to understand the intent, right? What is my goal is, right? Then it's basically going to give me the high level flow. So the question is, how can I build my first agent? So the high level flow is, first you define your agent business purpose, right? Why you're building this? What is the business purpose, right? Then you have to map required capabilities. What is the core reasoning will be, right? What is the context retrieval? That's your RAG, right? What are the tools? What are the guardrails, right? That you're going to implement, right? Then you need to select your model. You're going to select grounding data. Then you're going to build the orchestration workflow, right? So you're not maybe building one agent, but you're building multiple agents, right? So how these different agents will talk to each other, the orchestration layer, you need to actually think through that as well, right? And this is, it basically gives the example. You can see it basically write a simple Python code, which basically gives me the Azure AI Foundry agent workflow. I can copy and I can use that as well. It gives me some information on the security and compliance, observability and evaluation, scalability for production, and what next that it can do, right? Now, you may say that, hey, you know what, this can be, or maybe I'll take another example, right? While it's generating, I'll just continue with the another one. So let's say, I'll take a question number 8. How do I ensure that AI agents are secure and compliant? So you may say that, this can be done with any of the chat interface today, right? Which is available in the market, right? So you can go maybe ChatGPT or Gemini or maybe, Copilot, and they can provide the answer, right? But here, the difference is you are actually providing more controlled and instructions to your agent, what it needs to do, right? Maybe this demo might not be relevant, but the whole understanding is think through what this capability can do in the organization, right? So all your processes, for example, if you have any invoice processing in the organization or onboarding processes, right? You will get all this information, and then you can actually build that, right? So here now you can see for the another question, how to ensure AI agents are secure and compliant. It look into my intent, and then it basically gives me all these steps, right? For the data security, you need to think through the access control, how the data is going to transmit, right? Whether it's on the encrypted communications or what protocol is going to use, right? How the API endpoints are going to authenticate, whether you're going to use OAuth, Azure AD, or something else, right? How the data is going to stay when it's in rest, or maybe when you have the logs or cache, how you going to make sure that is persistent, right? Then it basically gives me information of data privacy and compliance, right? So the whole idea is it gives me all these information that is required, right? Now, I may ask, I haven't given the instruction not to answer anything. Let's see if it answers. Give me the joke of the day. Click. Right. So now you can see it basically comes and says, okay, your intent is looking for the joke. I can do that, right? But I can actually change this instructions, and I can say, don't answer any question which is not related to Azure AI Foundry. Just say, sorry, I can't help. Right, and this is a part of your prompt engineering. So you may hear this term prompt engineering very often when you're in the agentic world, right? And let me just save it. And ideally, if I ask joke of the day, please. Now it will not answer me, right? So that's the power of instruction, and that's what you learn when you go into the prompt engineering. Okay, I hope that makes clear to everyone. Now, the another thing that I want to show you is go back to my agents. We also have the workflows. So if you want to have, let's say you have multiple agents, and if you want to create a orchestration, for example, let's say if we have leave approval process, right? So first is it basically going to check whether the employee have enough leaves available in the database or not, right? So the agent will do its job. Then when the agent is done, the second agent is basically check whether the user can is not involved in any project during that time, right? So it may check your calendar and things like that, right? And then it basically the agent third is basically going to create a summary And maybe it's going to involve the human in the loop, let's say your technical lead, to basically check whether this is the leave that has been approved. These are the projects that this person is involved, whether you approve this request or not, right? And then when it's approved or not approved, it basically sends the notification, right? So that kind of a flow where multiple agents are involved, you can actually create that workflow as well. Okay. I'm not going to build it for now. I'll just go back. I don't want to save it. Just leave it. Okay. Let's talk about the guardrails now. Now, as we briefly discussed, right? So if you want to control how your agent behaves for any requests that are coming from the user and the output that you're sending back to the user, right? So if you want to guardrail that, you can actually create your own guardrails as well, right? And this is important because you may say that, you know, the default guardrail that Microsoft putting is not fulfill our requirement. We want to create our own guardrails. Or maybe we have different guardrails for different agents, right? For some agents, we may say, okay, you know, if user are sending the hate comments, because the agent's job is to, you know, help user to come up with that situation, right? So there might be some abusive language will be involved. There might be some hate comments will be involved, right? For such agents, you may allow, but for other agents, you may not allow, right? So you might have different guardrails that you want to apply. So that's where you can actually create your guardrails and said, okay, you know what? Let me just select, for example, I'm just gonna, actually, let's choose from here. So for the jailbreak, for all the content safety, and for all the product material, I need this guardrails to be available, right? And I'll say next. Then I'm going to add my agent and model. So I'm going to say this is going to apply to my mission agent, control agent AF01. Save this one. And all the models, what all models that I want to apply, I can select that. I'll go to the next. And I'm going to say this is AF01 guardrails. I'll just submit. And it's going to create this guardrail and it's going to apply onto the agents and as well as model. From now onwards, if any request that's coming to the agents or to the model, it's going to get validated against these guardrails that has been set up. Okay. Now, beyond that, you might say that, you know what, okay, guardrail is good, but there are some information which we don't want to interact on. For example, driving license number or maybe credit card number, right? You want to block some such information as well. And that's where the block list will come into the picture. So you can go into the block list and say, I'm going to create my own block list. AF01 block list. And either you can add the terms manually or you can upload via CSV, but I'm going to say this is for the credit card number. I just add this term and I could say it's probably going to be regex, and I can add more if I want to. And I'll just say create it. Right. And once it's done, I can add that as well against my model and my agent as well. Okay. Now, the another example that I want to show you is for evaluations. Right. What is evaluations and why it's important? So let's say you build an agentic solution in your organization, right? During the test, you said, okay, you know, we tested, it's all working, it's giving good results and everything fine, right? But when it actually goes to, let's say, business validation testing or for the user testing, right? How are you going to make sure that your requests and responses are relevant, groundness, the fluency is there, right? So how you can gonna make sure that, right? So for that purposes, we have this evaluations, right? So any interaction that you're doing, you can actually capture those information, right? And then you can actually figure it out whether those responses is pass or fail. You can define your thresholds. So either you can do from the UI or you can write the code as well. So here an example of a code. Right? And you can see I'm actually running this evaluator for the coherence, fluency, relevance, groundness, and the retrieval. Right? Once I run this code using the SDK, it basically going to generate a JSON output for me, which I can take. And just for this showing you the results, I can go in any of the tool that you use for look into the JSON data. Let me just go back. So you can see this has 10 objects. That means we have 10 requests getting in and 10 responses are coming out from that, right? So if I look for the first request and response, right? So this is the input query. Can I use the balance? Can unused balance be carried forward? Typical question from the employee in the organization, right? So this is the response that the agent gave back, right? And it has some context because we have, in this case, the RAG implemented, right? So it basically looked into the organization rules and regulations and basically use that as a context to answer the user, right? Now, if I scroll down, so I have these three, and then what it does is it basically look for what is the threshold. So in the code, I have defined the threshold for the coherence, right? So the threshold is 3, but the result that I get is 4. That means it's pass, and that's why you see the result is pass. And it basically gives me the reason as well. The response is clear, logically organized, coherent, even though it cannot answer the question fully, which is fine, which is okay, right? But I get that answer back. Okay. Now, similarly, let's look at an example of a fail for the same input, output, and context. So it should have something called fail. Let me just go down. Yeah, here you can see. So for the retrieval, it says it's fail, right? And why it's fail? Remember, the question is same, response is same, context is same, but the evaluators are different. Fluency is okay, but retrieval is not okay because the context that we have been provided, right, which is getting from the documents, does not address the question about the unused balances at all. So that means in the organization, I don't providing this information to my agents. And that's where I need to actually fix my documents by adding more information about this unused balances, rules and regulation in the organization, right? That's why it's fail. So what you can do is maybe on the real time, or maybe you can do this evaluation at batch level. But if it is in the real time, you can actually say, okay, if it is fail, then probably don't provide this answer to the user, right? So that's the whole concept of introducing evaluation and evaluator. So either you can do from the code or you can go back and do it from the UI. It's totally up to you, right? We provide both because sometime in the organization, you may not get the configuration permission from the portal. So it's going to generate some synthetic data. You can define that, confirm. I'm just going with the default. And I'll just say
So how do you restrict fail from here? When we
fail
restrict fail
in
from
the
here,
sense?
you have showed the evaluation where it failed, right? And you don't want to show the users the failed ones, failed responses.
Correct.
Can we restrict
So
from there?
you can do that because what's happening is any request, response, or context that you're getting out, right, from the large language model, before you're going to send it to the user in the web UI, you're going to run the evaluators on top of that, right? And code I've showed you, right? So the results in the JSON format, when you say it's fail, let's say for the retrieval, you can say, okay, you know what? I'm not going to provide you the information because I don't have the relevant information. But at the same time, you can pass this information into the database so that the user, the HR person in the organization, be aware of that we are not providing the unused balance.
In the
and then they can fix it.
in the documents.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So my question was, you were creating the evaluation, right? So in the evaluation, can we filter that out? Oh, it's in the evaluation, right? Okay, yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll get the output, right? So this is the
Out.
output, the JSON output. I just want to show you that, so that it'll be easier for to understand.
Yeah. Sure.
But yeah, it's all the JSON document which will come back. Now,
Yeah. Okay.
either you can do it in the real time, or maybe you can do at the batch. That's totally up to you.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
It's probably going to take some time, so I'll just move ahead from here.
Yeah.
What else we got it? I think. Okay, let's go into the operate now. So this is where you can actually look your metrics, monitor, right? How many agents are running?
Agents.
Yeah. Success rate trends, success rate, your agent run volume, everything you will see from here. Then what all assets that you have in terms of the agents that you're using, in terms of the models that you're using, in terms of the tools that you're using for all the projects, or maybe one project, you can see it from here. Then from the compliance perspective, you can see if there's any policies that we apply. You will see that any guardrails that we have, we will get that information for this project. These are the models where the guardrails are enabled, and you can see what type of guardrails that are enabled on it. Then we also have the security posture. That's where the defender for the cloud comes in, which can give you some recommendation as well. And then for the data security and governance, you're probably going to connect to your Microsoft Purview, which is your data security posture management module will be there, which can allow you to look from the security and the governance perspective. This is where you can see all your quota that has been assigned to your subscription. So if you need more quota, you can actually request. But if you're getting quota errors or something like that, this is the first place we generally see, how many quota that has been allocated to this particular model and how much I'm using and things like that. And this is for your admin purposes. You can see all the projects. You can deep dive into that. And yeah. And then last is the docs, which is all the documents just to get you started and, help you to quickly build your agentic solution. So with that, I think from the demo and the content perspective, that's what I want to show you. And now I'll stop sharing and probably I'll open for any questions that you guys have.
Yeah, I think the new Foundry looks much better. Thank you very much.
Yep. No worries.
Yeah. I'll stop the recording.